That's all right, so you have a range clear launch.
3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Moon Trees Live 2. The Forest Service provided hundreds of tree seeds to NASA, who launched them into space as a part of the Artemis 1 mission. In this set of 3 videos, we're exploring what happens next with those seeds. In this episode, we're going to explore what happened to the seeds once they arrived back with the Forest Service, and how our scientists tested the seeds to see if they survived the trip through space. To learn more about how the spacecraft was recovered and how the seeds were unpacked, watch our first video, Episode 1, Splashdown. In case you missed Moon Trees Live 1, check it out and learn about how these tree seeds began their journey through space. But before that even happened, our USDA Forest Service experts sorted tree seeds, packed them, and sent them to NASA to load onto their spacecraft. The Forest Service separated the seeds into 3 different groups.
We had one set of seed that was put on the Orion spacecraft early in the planning stages. And then we have one package that was put on the spacecraft very close to the launch date. And then we also have a package of seed that didn't go to space. So we have 3 different sets that we are looking at.
The point of the analysis is to determine whether there's any difference between the 2 seed collections that were on the spacecraft and exposed to different conditions versus our control group, which was maintained on Earth.
So the seeds that didn't go into space are our control group. That means there wasn't anything unique that was done with them, and we're pretty confident that they'll grow normally. The seeds that did go into space are our variable groups. They were exposed to space travel with variations in gravity and temperatures, so if they grow differently than our control group, the reason might be because they were in space. After they came back from their trip, well, Kayla took it from there.
I took that seed and then sorted it by each species and took another X-ray image of that seed. It was really important that we looked at the internal tissue of that seed after it came back. And we want to compare that to the images that we took before that seed went into space. The one thing that X-ray doesn't tell us is whether the seed is viable.
When we're talking about seeds, viable means that they're alive and able to sprout and reproduce. Now, there are 2 ways that we test for viability. We have a germination test and a tetrazolium test. The germination test is simple. Basically, we plant the seeds and wait to see if they grow. The problem is that it can take months, and I want to know how the seeds are doing right now. So, how does the tetrazolium test work?
It's a little bit different from a standard germination test in that we're measuring the respiration process of the seed. We're cutting the seed open and we're exposing the tissue inside the seed to a chemical salt solution that we've prepared. If the seed are alive and respiring, they'll have an enzyme that reacts with the salt in the solution. And one of the byproducts of that reaction is that the tissues inside the seed actually stain red. If they're alive, they should be red, whereas if they're dead, then they would be unstained and still be the same color that they were originally. So the tetrazolium test is a quick test in that it only takes us a couple of days to conduct it.
So the tetrazolium testing is much faster. It reminds me of the game Tetris. You got to be fast to get all those building blocks in place, right? Tetrazolium. You get it. Come on, it was funny. Anyway, the tetrazolium testing may be faster, but it does have a few disadvantages too. I mean, for one thing, the seeds that take this test, they won't survive.
The primary disadvantage is that it's a little more time consuming for the seed analysts that are conducting the test. We have to sit at a desk with a microscope and we have to cut each seed open individually. The other real disadvantage to using this test is that it's a little more complex to evaluate than a regular germination test is. With a tetrazolium test, we have to look at specific tissues inside the seed through a microscope after it's been in the solution for a few days. So there's a little bit more experience and knowledge required of the analyst in order to conduct the test accurately.
So there are definitely some pros and cons to testing the seeds in these two ways. But I think it's going to be worth the work to see our results.
This is a really exciting thing in science for us to be able to have different samples to work with. And we'll be able to understand if there's differences in the viability of those seed, differences in how it germinates, or differences in how those seedlings grow.
Amazing! But the journey doesn't stop here. So more Moon Trees Live 2 episodes are on their way. In 1 week, we'll find out how the tree seeds were planted in a nursery. In 2 weeks, join us for a live question and answer program where our experts will answer your questions live. Moon Trees Live 2. The journey continues. So be sure to blast off and check out all of our videos. Thanks for watching.
You have a range clear launch.
3, 2, 1.